Happy Martin Luther King Day. In this session, we're going to honor Dr. Martin Luther King with a program as we look back at the change he made for the people of his time and how it's changed us today. On September 2nd, 1957, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the keynote speech at Highlander's 25th anniversary celebration. At that same event, Pete Seeger performed the song, We Shall Overcome, with banjo and led the audience in singing it. Later that day, King is reported to have found himself humming that song in his car, telling his companions, "There's something about that song that haunts you." 7 years later, on March 15th, 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson evoked the sentiment that defines this song once again when he addressed Congress and 70 million television viewers in the U.S. to call for legislation ensuring the right to vote for all citizens. On March 31st, 1968, just days before Dr. King's assassination, he summoned the power and the promise of the song one last time during his final sermon in Memphis. Hear his own words in his sermon, "We Shall Overcome."
Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. Though I join hands so often with students and others behind jail bars singing, we shall overcome. Sometimes we've had tears in our eyes when we joined together to sing it, but we still decided to sing it. We shall overcome. Oh, before this victory's won, some will have to get thrown in jail some more, but we shall overcome. Don't worry about us. Before the victory's won, some of us will lose jobs, but we shall overcome. Before the victory's won, even some will have to face physical death. Physical death is the price that some must pay to free their children from a permanent psychological death. Then nothing shall be more redemptive. We shall overcome. Before the victory's won, some would be misunderstood and called bad names and dismissed as rabble-rousers and agitators, but we shall overcome. And I'll tell you why. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. We shall overcome because Carlyle is right. No lie can live forever. We shall overcome because William Cullen Bryant is right. Truth crushed to earth will rise again. We shall overcome because James Russell Lowell is right. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future. Behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch above his own. We shall overcome because the Bible is right. You shall reap what you sow. We shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. With this faith, we will go out and adjourn the councils of despair, bring new light into the dark chambers of pessimism. And we will be able to rise from the fatigue of despair to the buoyancy of hope. And this will be a great America. We will be the participants in making it so. And so as I leave you this evening, I say, walk together, children. Don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the
If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King definitely led a movement and a plea to change the way you look at the world, look at the change the way you look at people and the things that are happening around you. I think this song, "We Shall Overcome," and his speech speaks true to today. We've seen a lot of hurdles and a lot of challenges, especially this last couple of years. And I think if we just step back and look at the whole picture as Dr. Martin Luther King did, that if we work together and we come together and unite as one, we can and shall overcome today's challenges and struggles and the futures. Let's see how much we know about Martin Luther King Day and the holiday itself. True or false? Martin Luther King Jr. Day is the only federal holiday designated as a national day of service. It is true. It was designated as such to encourage all Americans to volunteer to improve their communities. The Corporation for National and Community Service has been charged to lead this effort for a quarter century. Do you know what the slogan given to Martin Luther King Day due to this designation and it being a federal holiday that falls on a Monday each year? The slogan I did not know, so I like the slogan. The slogan is, it's a day on, not a day off. So what does that tell us about maybe what we could be doing on Martin Luther King when we are off from our normal routine? Maybe take the opportunity to go volunteer and go make a difference and give your hand to someone in your community. What female folk artist led a crowd of 300,000 in a singing "We Shall Overcome" at the Lincoln Memorial during the August 1963 March on Washington? The answer is Joan Baez. The same day that Baez gave her performance of the song was a day preceded with what significant speech given by Martin Luther King? If you said, "I have a dream" speech, you are correct. There was a group of young singers organized by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in Georgia who influenced the style of this song, "We Shall Overcome," in 1960. What was that group called? The Freedom Singers. In his final sermon in Memphis, King referenced three men who inspired him and credited them with his faith that we shall overcome. Do you know who those three men were? They were Thomas Carlyle, a Scottish writer and historian during the Victorian era, William Cullen Bryant, an American poet and longtime editor of the New York Evening Post, and James Russell Lowell, another American poet who had written about the crisis of slavery in 1845. What common declaration did King make about each of these men in his speech, "We Shall Overcome"? King said Carlyle was right when he said, "No lie can live forever." Bryant had said, "Truth crushed to earth will rise again." And King said Lowell was right in his words, quote, "Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. To close, I would like to play the song "We Shall Overcome." I want to give you a little bit of background on where this song came from, if you didn't know. "We Shall Overcome" has been known as a civil rights song since the summer of 1963. It actually began as a work song in the cotton and tobacco fields of the South, where enslaved people would sing "I'll Be All Right Someday." From there, it evolved in churches as a hymn and gospel song. And then in 1901, Methodist minister Charles Albert Tindley published a version entitled "I'll Overcome Someday." Then the song was deployed for a political purpose for the first time in 1945 on the American Tobacco Company's picket lines in Charleston, South Carolina. And then 2 years later, in 1947, 2 union members from South Carolina attended a workshop at the Highlander Folk Center in Monteagle, Tennessee, where the people came together to collaborate and find solutions to racial and labor issues. The song traveled with them, where it gained the notice of Highlander's music director, Zilphide Horton. She adopted the song, using it in workshops in Tennessee and other states. Later that same year, while she was in New York to raise funds for Highlander, Horton introduced the song to folk singer and social activist Pete Seeger. He adopted it and added his own touches, including changing the word "will" to "shall." Over the next 2 decades, the song became an inspirational and uniting force. And I think that, like I said earlier, we can carry on this song's purpose and drive today, that we all can overcome whatever challenges and whatever struggles that we're facing, and we can be that change. I have a quote in my home that says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." That we have the capability and we have the responsibility to do our part, to come together and unite and help one another overcome whatever strife and trial that we or someone else is facing. So enjoy this song, and again, happy Martin Luther King Day. Grateful for him and all those men and women who have stood up for what they believe and what they know is right, to help change the world.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Deep in my heart, oh, deep in my
shall overcome someday.